Welcome students and respected parents. In the last sessions we discussed the nerve cell with reference to the linking aspects in coordination chapter of your 10th class syllabus. And now we will see the continuation of that linking system. This is one of the terrifying system in the human being body, one of the important organ in the human being body. Each and every organ in the human being body is important, is very vital as a matter of fact. Among those prescribed organs, the brain, which is very important and is the master center in the human being body. It is one of the major tank which control all the taps. Why? Because the brain is called the think tank. The major activities of this brain, it is very difficult to understand how the brain will work. It is very difficult to understand the functional aspects of the brain. Okay, dear students, by keeping all this in brain, by keeping all these in my brain, I want to begin this brain. Okay, see, if you observe the brain, this is the side view, what it is called sagittal view. See, now I stood like this will become the side view, sagittal view. Now what you are seeing is the lateral view of myself, lateral view of mine, and this will become the sagittal view. And now I made a section of the brain like this, and this is the sagittal view of the brain. This is the sagittal view of the brain, side view of the brain. It appears like this. It is very complex, in fact. Consists of so many neurons which are interlinking with each other. So many neurons which are interlinking with each other. Brain is covered by, or the spinal cord is covered by, brain and spinal cord both are covered by meninges. What are meninges? M-E-N-I-N-G-E-S, meninges. Meninges are nothing but the layers which surrounds the brain. The layers which surrounds the brain and the spinal cord. If these layers surrounds the brain, these are called cranial meninges, and these layers which surrounds the spinal cord are called spinal meninges. Okay, so cranial meninges and spinal meninges, the layers which surrounds the brain and the layers which surrounds the spinal cord. If you observe the layers which surrounds the brain, see the layers which surrounds the brain. In fact, this is cranium, which is nothing but the brain box. This is the brain box which protects the brain, and cranium, just below the cranium you can see a layer. That layer which was represented in the box here is called the Dura Mater. This is called Dura Mater, D-U-R-A-M-A-T-R, mater, Dura Mater. See how nicely the name was given. See how nicely the name was given. Dura means hard, mater means mother. So it's a hard protective structure like mother. So it is called Dura Mater. And below the Dura Mater, you can see a second layer, what it is called arachnoid membrane, A-R-A-C-H-N-O-I-D, arachnoid membrane, M-E-M-B-R-A-N-E, arachnoid membrane. So this is arachnoid membrane, the second layer which surrounds the brain, and this is Pia Mater. Pia means soft. Mater means mother. So a soft protective structure like mother. Dear students, you see how nicely the name was given. It is hard but protects like mother. It is soft but protects like mother. Where this brain is present? Dear students, where this brain is present? Brain is protected in the brain box. See, now imagine there is a box in my hand. This is called brain box. Do you want to see this brain box? Do you want to see this brain box? See, this is the brain box. So this is the brain box. So this is the brain box. This is the original human skull, my dear students. Original human skull. This is not made with POP, plaster of Paris. This is the original skull. Where this is present, you may get a doubt, sir, we are not discussing skeletal system. Why you are representing this? Why? Because our brain is present inside. See this. This is the brain. Can you see the brain? Brain is present here. Brain is present here. So brain is present inside this box. Inside this box. See, this was cut to open. Just the doctors made a section of the post-mortem. Okay. See, now the brain is present inside inside. You know, this is the frontal part of the skull, similarly the brain, frontal part of brain. And these two bones are called parietal bones. And the brain which is present just below this will become the parietal lobe of the brain. And this is the occipital lobe of skull. Similarly, for the brain it will become occipital lobe of the brain. So the names were given so simply according to the bones. Don't confuse students. The names were given according to the bones. This is frontal bone. This is frontal bone. Similarly, the brain which is present behind this is frontal part of brain. These two bones are called parietal bones. And the bone which is present, the bones which are present here, they are parietal bones. And the brain which is present behind this will become the parietal. And this is the occipital lobe of the skull, and the brain which is present here, inside here, this one, this area, occipital lobe of the brain. And this is the temporal bone of the skull, and the brain which is present here will become the temporal part of brain. So frontal part of brain, parietal part of brain, occipital part of brain, and temporal part of brain. Like that, the particular names, the concerned names of the brain lobes were given according to the skull bones. That's why we have given the names like so. And this is the area where the brain is present. This is called brain box. So that box is called brain box. So that brain box, cranium is nothing but the brain box, and this is Dura Mater. You can see the space present between the Dura Mater and arachnoid membrane. Students, are you following what I am saying? This is the first part of brain. This is the first layer which surrounds the brain, and this is the second layer which surrounds the brain. And the space present between this Dura Mater and arachnoid membrane, the space present between the first part of brain, first part of the layer which surrounds the brain, and the second layer, this is called subdural space, subdural space. And the space present between this arachnoid membrane and Pia Mater is subarachnoid space. Sub means just below. Arachnoid membrane, arachna means spider. So something like the spider web, you can see a membrane here. This is called arachnoid membrane. So this is arachnoid membrane. The space present below this arachnoid membrane is called subarachnoid space. And the space present below the Dura Mater is called subdural space. And there is a space here, what this is called EPIDURAL, epidural space. The space present above the Dura Mater is epidural space, you can call it. But this epidural space is absent in brain, present in spinal cord. This epidural space is absent in brain, but is present in spinal cord. So these are the meninges which surrounds the brain. So these are called cranial meninges. And now if you observe the brain, see the fundamental parts of the brain. If you observe the brain is fundamentally divided into three lobes. The brain is fundamentally divided into three lobes like this: forebrain, midbrain, hindbrain. Forebrain, midbrain, hindbrain. So this is the brain actually which is seen in the developing condition. This is the forebrain, first part of the brain, and this is the second part of brain, and this is the third part of brain. This is the first part of brain, this is second part of brain, and this is the third part of brain. The first part of brain is called, what is the first part of brain? The first part of brain is called forebrain. The first part of brain is called forebrain, Forebrain. The first part of the brain is called forebrain. The second part of the brain is called midbrain. The third part of brain is called hindbrain. Like that, three parts are there. First one, this is the first part of the brain, this is the second part of brain, and this is the third part of the brain. I told you that the first part of the brain is called, forebrain. What is another name of forebrain? So the first part of the brain is called forebrain. Forebrain is also called prosencephalon, Prosencephalon. Say this, cephalon. This is prosencephalon, first part of the brain, and this is the second part of the brain called mesencephalon, and this is the third part of brain which is called Rhombencephalon, Cephalon. See, cephalon is common. Cephalon is nothing but brain. Okay, cephalon is nothing but brain. Encephalon. Say this. E-N. Encephalon. 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 Infection of the brain is encephalitis. Infection of meninges layers, meningitis. So this is encephalitis. And infection of the layers which surrounds the brain, that is meningitis. So prosencephalon, mesencephalon, rhombencephalon. First part of the brain, second part of the brain, and the third part of the brain, which is called rhombencephalon. If you observe the prosencephalon, which is nothing but the first part of the brain, the prosencephalon again shows two parts. See now, you can see a small diagram here. It's a diagrammatic representation. You can see the two portions. These two portions comes under the first part of the brain, and this comes under the second part of the brain, and this comes under the third part of the brain. The first part of the brain, in fact, is called prosencephalon. That prosencephalon divides into two portions called telencephalon and thalamencephalon. Telencephalon, T-E-L-E-N, telencephalon, and this is thalamencephalon, T-H-A-L-A-M-E-N, thalamencephalon. Telencephalon is a portion which gives the first two parts called olfactory lobes and cerebrum. So telencephalon, it gives two portions. Number one, olfactory lobes. Number two, cerebral hemispheres. Simply I represented in the short form here. Cerebral hemispheres I represented here. Cerebral hemispheres. These are the two parts, olfactory lobes and cerebrum. This will become the part and parcel of telencephalon, and the telencephalon is one of the part which comes under prosencephalon. Telencephalon, I mentioned that two parts are there, olfactory lobes and cerebral hemispheres. These two comes under the first part of the brain called prosencephalon, which is also simply called the forebrain. Prosencephalon is nothing but the forebrain, first part of the brain. So the first part of the brain is prosencephalon, and it shows two parts, two components, telencephalon and thalamencephalon. Telencephalon again shows two parts, olfactory bulbs or olfactory lobes. Number two, cerebral hemispheres. Cerebral hemispheres. Okay, let us see this telencephalon. What is this telencephalon? I told you that telencephalon is a portion which gives olfactory bulbs. Olfaction is nothing but the smell. We are able to perceive the smell. We are able to receive the smell. Okay, that smelling sensation is because of these olfactory lobes. Actually, two club-shaped openings, club-shaped structures which are present here. So these are the structures which are responsible for you or for me to perceive the smell. We are able to perceive the smell because of these olfactory lobes. Because of olfactory lobes. If it is the lower vertebrate, something like rabbit, there is an empty space present even in these olfactory lobes also. There is an empty space present inside the olfactory lobes also. You know one of the interesting feature in the brain? There is an empty space present in the brain. There is an empty space present in your stomach. There is an empty space present in your lungs. There is an empty space present in your urinary bladder. Similarly, there is an empty space present inside the brain also. That empty space is very much important for the circulation of one fluid. One fluid circulates between the brain and spinal cord, and the fluid which circulates between the brain and spinal cord, imagine here this is the continuation of spinal cord. See, there is a fluid which circulates between the brain and spinal cord. That fluid is called, you know quite very well, what is it? CSF. Simply you are calling it as CSF. That is nothing but cerebrospinal fluid. See how the name was given? Cerebrospinal fluid. It means there is a fluid which is circulating between the brain and spinal cord. That is the reason why it is called cerebrospinal. Cerebrospinal. The fluid which is circulating between the brain and spinal cord. The same fluid is circulating between the brain and spinal cord. You know, just now I represented the subarachnoid space just below the second layer of the brain. What is the second layer? Arachnoid membrane. Previously I represented. Just below the arachnoid membrane, there is a fluid called What is that fluid? Cerebrospinal fluid. The space which is present here is the space which is present between the second layer and third layer of brain. This is called subarachnoid space. That subarachnoid space is filled with the fluid called cerebrospinal fluid. See, it means what I want to say, my dear students, please see here. So here there is a fluid which is circulating surrounding the brain. The fluid will circulate. That fluid is called cerebrospinal fluid. Students may get confused sometimes. Why? Because just now I told you that inside the brain there is an empty space. Inside the brain there is an empty space. Surrounding the brain there is an empty space. The fluid which is circulating inside the brain also flowing outside the brain. This is quite interesting. Fluid which is present inside the brain. This is an empty space present in the brain. There is a space present here, and there is a space present between the second layer and third layer of brain. I told you that 3 layers surrounds the brain. So imagine this is the first layer, and this is second layer, this is third layer. Just a diagrammatic representation to have the clarity. And here between the second and third layer there is an empty space, and here a fluid is flowing, and inside the brain also there is a fluid circulating. What I am saying is the fluid which is circulating here and the fluid which is present here, both are same. But now the question is how the fluid which is present in the brain comes out. You understand what I am saying? How the fluid present inside the brain comes out. It's really quite interesting story. I will tell you. So now if you just remember one point, what I am saying here, cerebral hemispheres and olfactory lobes, these two are the portions of telencephalon, and olfactory lobes, the concerned function is smell, perceiving of smell. That is very important. So in case of some lower organisms like lower vertebrates like rabbit, there is an empty space inside the olfactory lobes also. But in human being, there is no perfect space inside these olfactory lobes. There is no perfect space inside these olfactory lobes. That's all about the olfactory lobes, which are club-shaped structures, and their main function is perceiving of smell. That is the function of olfactory lobes. Cerebrum. What is this cerebrum? Cerebrum, I mentioned here cerebral hemispheres. You see here, this is one cerebral hemisphere and this is one cerebral hemisphere. The two cerebral hemispheres combinedly forms the cerebrum. So cerebrum includes cerebral hemispheres. Two cerebral hemispheres are present here. Two cerebral hemispheres are present. And what is the basic function of these two cerebral hemispheres? I mentioned here, I represented here. The basic functions of these two cerebral hemispheres, it makes you to think, to have the mental capability or mental ability. Number one, that is mental ability. Number two, thinking and memory, reasoning. All these are the functions associated with the cerebral hemispheres. The cerebral hemispheres makes you to think, makes you to memorize the aspects, makes you to analyze the aspect. What is nothing but reasoning? Why I have to do this? Why I have to listen this class? What is nothing but analysis? What is nothing but reasoning? That reasoning is there because of the cerebral hemispheres. So cerebral hemispheres are also the seeds of thinking, reasoning, memory, intelligence. All these are the aspects, functional aspects, which are associated with the cerebral hemispheres. Just now, my dear students, I told you that this is the front part of brain and this is the upper surface of the brain, lateral surface of the brain and posterior surface of the brain. So now everything will comes under, see this one, this half is called cerebral hemisphere and this half is called another cerebral hemisphere. The two cerebral hemispheres forms the cerebrum. Two cerebral hemispheres forms the cerebrum, and if you want to see one of the cerebral hemisphere, I will represent one of the cerebral hemisphere here. Each cerebral hemisphere, just now I told you that two cerebral hemispheres are present. Now each cerebral hemisphere is divided into the front portion. This is called frontal. This is called frontal lobe. And The second one, this is called parietal lobe. This is called parietal lobe. And the third one, this one is called temporal lobe. And this one is called occipital lobe. See this one, frontal lobe. This is the frontal lobe. And this is called parietal. Okay, just I am talking about one half. So this is the frontal lobe. And this is parietal lobe. And occipital lobe, this is occipital lobe, and this one here, the sides will become the temporal lobe. This is temporal lobe. So each half of cerebral hemisphere, if you observe this one, this is one cerebral hemisphere, this is one cerebral hemisphere. So each half of cerebrum is called cerebral hemisphere. Each cerebral hemisphere is divided into frontal lobe, parietal lobe, temporal lobe, occipital lobe. This is frontal lobe, this is parietal lobe, this is occipital lobe, and this is temporal lobe. Okay, and frontal lobe, what is the actual? This is the frontal lobe. Frontal lobe is the actual area where your creative ideas, will origin. Say for example, if you want to think something like this, generally we will think, what idea I will get now? Just we will think like this. It means this is an area. It doesn't mean if you tap here you will get idea. It's not like that. But this is an actual area where your creative ideas, will come. So frontal area, this is the frontal area where your creative ideas will come. And parietal lobe, this is an area, the parietal lobe is an area where you are able to perceive the heat or hot and even temperature or even less temperature, cold, and even you are able to perceive the pain because of this lobe. What that lobe is called? Parietal lobe. So parietal lobe is an area where you are able to perceive, because of this area only you are able to perceive the heat or hotness and even temperature and cold, followed by the pain. Perception of pain is also because of this parietal lobe. Not only that, even this dressing also. So dressing sense is also because of this parietal lobe. And even you can read the clock, you can map, you can point out some objects also. You can point out, yes, this is an area, this is an area, this is an area. This here olfactory lobes were mentioned. Here brain was written. Here these are represented as club shape. Like that we are able to point out the objects because of this parietal region. And this is the temporal area. The side region, these are called temporal. This is the temporal area for the auditory functions. I am not saying you are able to hear because of this temporal. No, I am not saying like that. Actually, whatever the sounds you will perceive, the perception of the sounds is possible because of this temporal along with the ear. Of course, ear will collect the sound waves, but those sound waves will travel, will reach us to the brain, and in that hearing aspect, the temporal lobe plays an important area. And then this one is called occipital area. This is occipital area, posterior most of the brain, posterior most part of the brain. This is called occipital area. This is an area where your where your visual aspects will begin here. Visual aspects. So this is associated with vision. Occipital area, this is associated with vision. Temporal area, this is auditory area. You are able to perceive the sounds with the assistance of ear because of this temporal lobe. And the occipital area, this is an actual area where vision is possible. And this is cerebellum, a very important portion in the brain. Cerebellum. This is the cerebellum. The cerebellum is a very important structure which helpful for you to maintain the equilibrium, balance inside the body. See, now I am able to walk like this. And this stylish walking or coordinated walking is because of the signals given by the cerebellum. So listen, I want to tell one important difference between the cerebrum and cerebellum. Though I am not explaining the cerebellum now, I want to tell one fundamental difference between cerebrum and cerebellum. See, this entire area is cerebrum and this is cerebellum. The main fundamental difference between this portion of the brain and this portion of the brain is the cerebrum is essential for initiation of voluntary activity. Initiation of the voluntary activity. For example, if I want to move from this area to this area, that initiation, that signal was initially given by cerebrum, but that coordination, see like this, one by one, or like this, the movement, the coordinated movement is just because of the cerebellum. So coordinated movement is very important. Say for example, if you take the drunken person, he also can walk, but see, his walking will be something different. So the different walking, why? Because there is no balance. The person will wobble like this. So why? Because the cerebellum is going to get affected there. So cerebellum is an important area in the body, in the brain, to maintain that coordination. So this coordinated movement, see, this coordinated movement is possible because of the cerebellum. So cerebellum is essential for coordination of voluntary activities. Initiation of voluntary activities is because of cerebrum. Coordination of voluntary activities is because of cerebellum. That's why, because of any reason, if the cerebellum damages, then there may be a chance of having ataxia in the person. A-T-A-X-I-A. Taxi means movement. A means absent. Ataxia, there will be no movement. So cerebellum is very important portion in the brain. I will explain in the last part of the brain. Now my main motto is to explain the cerebellum, but as it is quite needed to the cerebellum, I differentiated one of the fundamental feature between cerebrum and cerebellum. So cerebrum is the major portion of the brain. The major portion of the brain is cerebrum. And I mentioned what are the functions of the cerebrum here, and I want to discuss one important aspect here. Imagine now my two hands are the cerebral hemispheres. This is one cerebral hemisphere and this is another cerebral hemisphere. The two cerebral hemispheres are internally connected by, see this one, piece of chalk. You can't see this piece of chalk when I put the hand like this. But now, if you made a section of it, just made a section of the brain, this is sagittal view. I told you that this is sagittal view. So if you make a sagittal view, of the brain, you can see an extraordinary structure present here. See dear students, please notice this very important coordinating center in the brain, and this portion is called, what is it? The connecting center of the brain is called Corpus Callosum. So Corpus Callosum is an important area like this. I magnified this image. Just I represented the Corpus Callosum. So Corpus Callosum is a wide bundle of myelinated nerve fibers. Wide bundle of myelinated nerve fibers are connecting the right and left parts of two cerebral hemispheres. The right and left parts of the two cerebral hemispheres are connected by this commissure, this connection, what it is called corpus callosum, which is wide, flat, transverse nerve bundle. Wide, flat nerves bundle, what myelinated nerve bundle, what it is called corpus callosum. You may ask me, sir, it is present inside the brain. What is its advantage? My dear students, I want to tell very important thing. Coordination is very important even in the brain, even among the lobes of the brain also. See, the right part of the brain and left part of the brain are connected by this corpus callosum. This corpus callosum, it connects the right part of the brain and left part of the brain, corpus callosum. So whatever the activities which are present in the right part will be known by this left part, and whatever the functions which are performed by this left one is also known by this right part. So there is a connection between the right and left parts of the brain because of this corpus callosum. If this corpus callosum is present, we can say that the brain is developed brain. For example, if at all I put one lobe of brain into your hands, now by seeing that lobe, you can predict, okay, this is corpus callosum. Like that you can predict, okay, if corpus callosum is present, which brain it is? Definitely it is a highly developed mammalian brain. So corpus callosum is a very important structure which connects the right cerebral hemisphere with the left cerebral hemisphere. What is nothing but corpus callosum. Corpus callosum. You see here some foldings were represented here. What are these foldings? Do you understand what I am saying? See the foldings. I will represent one fold separately. See this one. These are the foldings. Imagine the rope. Imagine this is a rope like this. Imagine this one is the rope which is represented like this. And this rope-like structure, this is called gyrus singular, gyri plural. And here you can see the foldings. These foldings are called sulci, S-U-L-C-I, sulci, sulcus singular, sulci plural. So gyri and sulci are the foldings which are seen in the cerebral hemisphere. My dear students, if there is no sufficient space, what happens? Say for example, if you take the handkerchief, we will fold the handkerchief for napkin and then we will put it inside. Why? Because if you unfold it, its surface area increases. Similarly, there is so much brain is there. But here in the cranial cavity, that space is very less. So how this large brain, how this large surface area having brain will be accommodated? How it will be accommodated? By folding. By folding. So now you can see these foldings. So they are nothing but gyri and sulci. They are nothing but the foldings which are seen in cerebral hemispheres. Am I clear? So all these are the foldings. All these are the foldings which are seen in the front portion of the brain. What it is nothing but. See, all these are the foldings which are seen in cerebral hemispheres. So this is an area. This entire area will comes under cerebral hemispheres, and this is corpus callosum area. I represented the corpus callosum also. And now I want to represent one of the important structure. See, just now we completed the telencephalon. I mentioned telencephalon includes olfactory lobes and cerebral hemispheres. I finished the telencephalon. Let us move to the first part of brain. Don't confuse. Let us come to the last part of first part of brain. What is the last part of first part of the brain? Last part of the first part of the brain is Thalamencephalon. See, this is an area, Thalamencephalon. Very simply, I will show you the Thalamencephalon here. See this Thalamencephalon. Imagine this is the side view of Thalamencephalon. This is Thalamencephalon, and this area is called thalamus, and this area is called epithalamus, and this area is called hypothalamus. This is thalamus, this is epithalamus, and this is hypothalamus. This is thalamus, this is epithalamus, and this is hypothalamus. What else I can show? Say this one. This is an area, this is thalamus, and this area is epithalamus area, and this area will represent hypothalamus area. So Thalamencephalon is divided into three portions. For our convenience only, we did so. What it is called? Thalamencephalon. Shall I tell one thing? One important aspect, interesting aspect. Thalamencephalon is also called Diencephalon. D-I-E-N. Thalamencephalon is also called Diencephalon. Thalamencephalon is also called Diencephalon. So it shows three portions. Number one, epithalamus. Number one. Number two, thalamus. Number three, hypothalamus. Epithalamus, thalamus, and hypothalamus. These are the three portions which comes under the diencephalon. Actually, you can't see these portions that much clearly in the brain. Why? Because it is overlapped by the cerebral hemispheres. Actually, this is a thalamic portion. This thalamic portion is not that much clearly visible because it is overlapped by It is overlapped by cerebral hemispheres. So cerebral hemispheres are very large. I told you that these are the seats of thinking. Cerebral hemispheres are the seats of thinking, memory, reasoning, intelligence. That's why human beings stood top in evolution. So we are the toppers. Yes, we are the toppers in evolution. You know why? Why we are the toppers? Why? Because cerebral hemispheres are developed. That's why we are toppers. Okay. Now, see, this is the thalamus area, and this is epithalamus and hypothalamus. This is hypothalamus area, and this is thalamic area. In the thalamus, epithalamic area, you can see a small stalk, small body like that. What is that small body which is present there? And this gland is called a pineal gland. Pineal, pineal gland. So epithalamus shows a small stalk, this area. I told you this is epithalamus. Here there is a stalk. What is called pineal gland. Pineal gland. Pineal gland. And pineal gland is present for this epithalamus. And second one is thalamic portion. This is the thalamic portion. And just below the thalamus, this is hypothalamus. Hypothalamus shows another stalk. You can see this stalk. See this diagram. See this one. A small stalk is there. What it is called? Pituitary gland. Pituitary. This is pituitary gland. Earlier, that gland is called pineal gland, and this gland is called pituitary gland. Okay. Imagine now this is thalamus, this is epithalamus, this is hypothalamus, and here there is a gland called pineal gland. Here there is a gland called pituitary gland. This is pituitary gland. See, this is pituitary gland. Very important gland which is in the size of a pea. Size of a pea. A small gland is present called pituitary gland. Very important gland in the body, which coordinates so many glands in the human being body, which coordinates so many hormones in the human being body. The gland is called pituitary gland. Okay, the gland is called pituitary gland. And thalamus, major coordinating center in the human being brain. The major coordinating center in the human being body is thalamus. A very important portion is thalamus. See, now this is pineal gland, this is pituitary gland, this is pituitary gland. There is another name, excellent names were given. Pineal gland, pituitary gland. Pineal gland is present above, pituitary gland is present below for the brain. So, the pineal gland is also called epiphysis. Epiphysis cerebri, cerebri. Epiphysis, epiphysis. Epiphysis cerebri. Pituitary gland is also called hypophysis cerebri. Hypophysis cerebri. This is epiphysis cerebri. This is hypophysis cerebri. So this is pineal gland and this is pituitary gland. You know pineal eye? Pineal eye is different. This is pineal gland and this is pituitary gland, which is also called hypophysis cerebri. Now let us see the functions of Diencephalon. Now let us see the functions of the Diencephalon. Diencephalon. Say students, some of you may think, sir, what is this, sir, entire brain? How many points you have to remember? So many issues are there. No, just I am giving preliminary data, introductory aspects of brain only. Why? Because you know, it is not possible even for the great scientists and doctors also to know the functions of this brain. How this brain is working. What are the different types of interlinking aspects? How the brain is able to recall the memory. How is able to perceive the smell. How the brain knows it is strong odor. And how the brain is able to differentiate the voice. Voices, different voices, what you heard previously. So all these are $1 million questions generally which will arise in the brain. So it is not possible to finish the brain in one slot. So students, first of all, what is required? In order to understand the brain is required. I mean to say concentration is required. Unless and until that concentration, unless and until you focus on the board, unless and until there is a zeal inside you, yes, I have to learn this. you can't understand so many aspects of the brain. So now if you observe the functional aspects of the diencephalon, actually this is an area we are talking about. Hope so you got the clarity. This is an area, and in fact this area is called midbrain, second part of the brain. This is midbrain, and everything this comes under the first part of the brain, and this is the second part of the brain. This is the second part of the brain. This is called midbrain, and this area is called pons. Okay, I will explain. So this is the thalamus, and this is the pons area, and this is midbrain. So what is the location of this diencephalon? You see there? And here the cerebrum, brain is there between the cerebrum and the midbrain. So this is the midbrain portion. Now imagine my upper hand. Students, please concentrate on the board. Imagine now my upper hand is cerebrum, and the lower hand is midbrain. Between this upper hand and lower hand, between this cerebrum and the midbrain, here comes the thalamus. That's what I mentioned there. Between the cerebrum and midbrain, thalamus is present. Hope so my point is clear. Upper hand is the cerebrum and lower hand is the midbrain. Between these two areas, the thalamus is present. What is the basic function of thalamus? What is the main function of thalamus? Thalamus function is maintenance of water balance, and its function is nothing but maintenance of BP. See, blood pressure. BP is nothing but blood pressure, and even it is a thermostat, maintenance of temperature, and even hunger sensation is also under the control of this so-called diencephalon. Not only that, it controls the major gland. What is that major gland? Pituitary gland. It controls the pituitary gland also. So it is a thermostat of your body. It is an osmoregulatory center. For example, when you are feeling thirsty, you will take one bottle of water or one glass of water, and you will take that glass of water or a tumbler of water. After taking certain quantity of water, you will put the bottle down. Who is giving command to your hand to put the water bottle down? Water level inside the body is okay, sufficient. Now put the bottle down. Who had given? This diencephalon has given the command to you. So if you are taking the water bottle to take the water, that is because of the signal given by the diencephalon. And if you are putting the bottle again on the table, that is also because of this diencephalon. So for example, if you are eating food, hunger sensation. See, now my stomach is giving signal to the brain. Come on friend, let us take some food. That signal was given to the stomach because of this diencephalon, and once you take the food material, once you are eating, after certain period, after you have taken the sufficient quantity of the food, you will say, okay, sufficient, it's required, okay, sufficient, it's more than sufficient, please stop serving the food material. Like that you will say. And who is going to give the command? Please stop. Who is giving command? This diencephalon is going to give the command, what it is called the saturation center. What it is called satiety center is also under the control of diencephalon. So my dear students, thalamencephalon is the last part of the first part of the brain, what is nothing but the forebrain, and the telencephalon and thalamencephalon are the two portions which comes under the first part of the brain, what it is nothing but the first part of the brain, what is nothing but forebrain. So the forebrain or prosencephalon includes telencephalon and thalamencephalon. Telencephalon includes olfactory lobes and cerebral hemispheres, and thalamencephalon includes epithalamus, thalamus and hypothalamus. So now with this I finish the first part of the brain called forebrain. Now let us see the second part of the brain, what it is called mesencephalon. This is the second part of brain called mesencephalon, which is nothing but the midbrain. This is midbrain. Mesencephalon, which is nothing but the second part of brain, mesencephalon. This mesencephalon or the midbrain is present. My dear students, please see here. Previously what I told? In previous few minutes, just now we have seen that this is thalamus, which is present between the cerebrum and the midbrain. And now I am talking about the midbrain. This is thalamus, this is midbrain, and this is an area where pons is present. Pons, this is area pons. So this is pons, this is M for midbrain. So where the midbrain is present between thalamus and pons. Midbrain location, it is between thalamus and pons. The students, you should know the address of the brain. Each and every part of the brain is having its own address. So midbrain is present between thalamus and pons. Midbrain is present between thalamus and pons. That is the midbrain. And midbrain, if you observe the midbrain, on the dorsal surface of midbrain, students, see here, this will become the ventral surface of the brain, and this will become the dorsal surface of the brain. This is the dorsal surface of the brain, and this is ventral surface of the brain. This is ventral and this is dorsal. So if you observe the dorsal surface of the brain, here two lobes are present like this. See now, these are the two lobes. The two lobes which are present on the dorsal surface of the brain. So this is the ventral surface of the brain, and this is the dorsal surface of the brain, and here two lobes are present. These two lobes which are present on the dorsal side, here, this is an area where the two lobes are present. Simply I will represent the lobes here, and these two lobes which are present in the midbrain. The two lobes which are present in the midbrain are called colliculi. It means, see this one, these are the two lobes. Actually these two lobes are called corpora bigemina. Corpora bigemina. C-O-R-P-O-R-A. Corpora bigemina. Corpus means body, bi means two. Two lobes are present, corpora bigemina, and the two superior lobes are called superior, and the two lower lobes are called inferior colliculi. C-O-L-L-I-C-U-L-I. So this is superior colliculi, this is inferior colliculi. Colliculi, C for colliculi I have written here. Colliculi, C-O-L-L-I-C-U-L-I, colliculi. Collicule means hill. Collicule means hill. So two superior colliculi and these two are inferior colliculi. Superior colliculi and inferior colliculi. The two lobes are there. And these two lobes are now again divided into four lobes. So as four lobes are present, it is not advisable to use the word bigemina. You have to use the word quadrigemina. Corpora quadrigemina. Corpora quadrigemina. Four lobes are there. 1, 2, 3, 4. Four lobes are present. If two lobes are present, you can use the word corpora bigemina. But here four lobes are present called corpora quadrigemina. Actually these superior lobes are useful for the sight or vision. Inferior colliculi are useful for hearing. Let me give one clarity. For example, superior colliculi is useful for, I said they are useful for sight. S for sight, vision. It means don't think these are exactly useful for vision. Whenever you just move your head like this, whenever I moved the head like this, see now, once I am seeing the board and once I am concentrating on the students. Now when I turn my head like this, my eyes should focus on specific object. So when I am turning to move my head, my head should focus on object. Should focus on specific object. So when you turn your head to focus on the specific item, to focus on the specific object, when you turn your head, it is possible to see the object when you turn your head. Once again I am saying, when you are nodding your head, when you are turning your head to focus on, see now, I turn my head to focus on the object. When I turn my head, that is under the control of the superior colliculi. Similarly, when I am moving my head like this, just now I heard some disturbance here, and when I want to listen it, when I want to focus on it, even though my head is turning like this, It is useful. My head is able to receive the sound waves even though I am turning my head like this. Do you understand what I am saying? Say for example, when the teacher is trying to explain something, the students sometimes they will make some noise there. Even then the teacher is able to understand. Even then the teacher is able to listen the voice. So it is this inferior colliculae are useful to perceive the sound waves, when you are turning your head. So the movement, when your head is in movement, you are able to perceive the sound waves and you are able to focus on the object. It means sight. So you are able to focus on the object, and you are able to hear, and this is possible because of the superior colliculae and inferior colliculae which are present in the midbrain. And in the midbrain, very important students, please concentrate. In the midbrain, there are two peduncles are present like this. Two peduncles are present. Connections are present. Say just a pipe-like structure like this. So this is peduncle. Just a pipe-like structure like this. In the midbrain itself, imagine. Students, please concentrate here. This is midbrain and this is thalamic portion and this is pons. So in the midbrain, if you observe the midbrain, here peduncles are present. So these are the peduncles. So two peduncles are present. They are nothing but the connections. The peduncles will connect the superior part of the brain with the inferior part of the brain. Upper portion of the brain is in continuation with the lower portion of the brain because of these peduncles which are present here. So you can see the peduncles here. So which connects the anterior portions and the posterior portions. It will come in the later sessions. It will become a bit detailed. I will present in the coming sessions with animation. And now if you observe this pons, in order to move the pons, which is actually present below the midbrain. So if you concentrate, students, please see here, this is the midbrain portion. Midbrain is a continuation. It is exactly present below the thalamus and above the pons. So four lobes are present. They are called corpora, quadrigemina, superior colliculi, inferior colliculi. Collicle means little hill. Collicle means a little hill-like structure. Okay, so that's all about this midbrain, which is nothing but mesencephalon. And now let us see the last part of the brain, which is called rhombencephalon. This is rhombencephalon, the last part of the brain, which is also called the hind brain. The rhombencephalon is divided into two parts: metencephalon and myelencephalon. Dear students, metencephalon includes pons and cerebellum. Pons and cerebellum. Pons varoli and cerebellum, these are the two important areas actually which comes under this metencephalon. So pons and cerebellum are the two parts which comes under metencephalon, and the last part of the brain is myelencephalon, which includes medulla, medulla, medulla oblongata. Medulla oblongata is the last part of the brain which is in continuation with the spinal cord. This is metencephalon. The metencephalon shows two parts, what it is called pons and cerebellum. You see the pons, this is an area where pons is present. I will show you, this is an area where pons is present. See, you can see the P for pons. So this is an area where the pons is present, and this is medullary region. This is medulla oblongata portion. And this is pons. Just behind the pons you can see one area, and this area is called cerebellum. This is cerebellum. Okay, this is cerebellum, and this is this area. This is an area. Okay, here midbrain, and this area is pons, and now this is medulla oblongata. This is the pons, pons, cerebellum and medulla oblongata. So pons is a major center which will give support to the cerebellum. See, the cerebellum is present here. This is the cerebellum. So in front of the cerebellum the pons is present. So pons connects the two lobes of the cerebellum. In fact, it gives support to the cerebellum. I will represent the cerebellum. Wait. So this is cerebellum. Just in front of the cerebellum you can see the pons. So pons is a major center which connects the medulla and cerebellum and the rest of the remaining parts of the brain. What I want to say, so many issues are there actually to deal with the pons. Pons consist of so many centers. Pneumotaxic center which controls the depth of breathing also. So many issues are there in the pons. So what I will say, pons is a major center actually which connects the cerebellum with the remaining portion of the brain. Pons varoli, which is a main center which connects the cerebellum and the remaining or the rest of the brain. If you see this cerebellum, I will represent the cerebellum here. Imagine this is the cerebellum. Imagine this is the side view of the cerebellum, and now if you observe the upper surface of the cerebellum, so this is the cerebellum. This area is cerebellum. In the central there is a partition, and here you can see one lobe, second lobe and third lobe. So two lobes are present, and this is one lobe and this is one lobe. The two lobes are called cerebellar hemisphere. Cerebellar hemispheres. Two hemispheres are present. These two hemispheres are called cerebellar hemispheres. Previously I told you these two are cerebral hemispheres, and now these two are cerebellar hemispheres. Cerebellar hemispheres. So this is the anterior lobe, and this one is the middle lobe, and this is the posterior lobe, and this is the central portion. This is the central portion. Actually this is called vermis, VRMIS, vermis. This is anterior, and this is middle, and this is posterior. In the middle region actually some side foldings are also seen like this. Okay, anyhow, if this is the cerebellum, here this is an area, cerebellum, central one is called vermis. I told you in the initial time when I was explaining the cerebrum, I compared the cerebrum and cerebellum. Do you remember? So cerebellum, this is an important area which is very much essential for the maintenance of balance, equilibrium. This is very important for the maintenance of balance in the body, that is cerebellum. Cerebellum is very important portion, and it is connected to this midbrain. See, this is an area, midbrain. This is midbrain, and this one is pons, and this is the hind brain. I mean to say medulla oblongata. This is medulla oblongata. See, the cerebellum is connected to the midbrain. Cerebellum is connected to the pons. Cerebellum is connected to the medulla also. Cerebellum is connected to the medulla, cerebellum is connected to the midbrain, cerebellum is connected to the pons, cerebellum is connected to the medulla oblongata also with the help of peduncles. They are also called peduncles. I will write here, they are also called peduncles. So what are peduncles? This is superior peduncle, middle peduncle, inferior peduncle. Three peduncles are there. Actually, three are present on this side, three are present on this side. So total 6 peduncles are present. These 6 peduncles, what is the function of the peduncle means? It connects the cerebellum with the anterior part of the brain, with the middle part of the brain, with the posterior part of the brain. And the cerebellum contains a very important area which is very much essential for the maintenance of balance or equilibrium. That is the reason why it is also called gyroscope. It is also called gyroscope, maintenance of balance. And the tree of life, inside the cerebellum, there are some ramifications with reference to the gray matter and white matter. But in the brain, up to so far, I have not mentioned the gray matter and white matter. Why? Because I will explain where this gray matter and white matter is present at the time of spinal cord. In the spinal cord, inner portion will be gray, outer portion will be white. In brain, it will be reverse. In brain, inner portion will be white, outer portion will be gray, except in medulla. Except in medulla. Once again, students, I will explain at the time of spinal cord. Now this is cerebellum, which is called gyroscope, and it maintains its connection with the midbrain. It means anterior part of brain with the middle part of the brain and hind part of the brain. That is cerebellum, which is called gyroscope, which is very much essential for the maintenance of coordination. So coordination of voluntary activities, this is very important. Coordination of voluntary activities, it means the hand movement and leg movement, we are able to perform it in a coordinated fashion. So that coordination is possible because of the cerebellum. Because of cerebellum. So that cerebellum and pons, these two areas comes under metencephalon. Let us come to the last part of the brain. Don't underestimate the last part of the brain. See, this last part of the brain is medulla oblongata, which is nothing but the myelencephalon, which is a part of rhombencephalon. So the last part of the brain is rhombencephalon. It divides into two parts called metencephalon and myelencephalon. Metencephalon includes two parts, pons and cerebellum. Myelencephalon consists of the last part, what it is called medulla oblongata, which is almost more or less triangular in shape. So this is medulla oblongata. In one sentence I can explain extraordinarily here with reference to medulla. It contains all involuntary centers. So medulla oblongata is the last part of the brain, medulla oblongata. This is the last part which contains all involuntary centers. All involuntary centers. Involuntary centers means the centers which are very much essential for control of your cardiac or cardiovascular activities. Hiccups, even laughing, and even swallowing, vomiting. Can you control vomiting? Can you control your heartbeat? Can you control your respiratory activities? You can't control. Why? Because all these are involuntary activities. So all these involuntary activities are under the control of medulla oblongata. Medulla oblongata. And finally, my dear students, I have to explain so many issues, still not over. Empty space present here, first empty space, second one, and there is a third empty space here, and fourth empty space here, fourth empty space present here in the medulla. I have to explain these ventricles. I will present it in the spinal cord. But now what I want to say, so many points are there, still I have to cover. But overall images, overall outline I am giving now, the medulla oblongata, which is the last part of the brain, and this last part of the brain, medulla oblongata, it comes out from the skull, the base of the skull. You know, there is a large opening present at the base of skull, and that large opening present at the base of skull, see this one, this is called, see this one, see this one. The large opening present here, see this large opening, is it visible? And now see, you can see here. So the large opening here, this is the large opening called foramen magnum. Foramen means opening, magnum large. What it is called? Foramen magnum. The large opening, foramen magnum. So now the medulla oblongata, it maintains the continuation with the spinal cord. This is spinal cord. So this is medulla oblongata. So medulla maintains connection with the spinal cord because of this opening. So the medulla oblongata, the last part of the brain, see now it maintains the continuation with the spinal cord because of having the large opening present here. This is called foramen magnum. See the name, how the name was given? Foramen means opening. Magnum means large. Large opening present in the body. Now students, a simple point I want to ask, just you refer it. What is the largest opening present in the body? What is the largest opening present in the body? Just refer it. But this is not the largest opening in the body. So there is, see, but it's not a normal issue. See how much large opening is there, through which, see, now it maintains the connection with the spinal cord. Okay, spinal cord maintains the connection with the medulla oblongata. So this is the last part of the brain, which is called medulla oblongata. And you know, I want to close this brain session. In the beginning of my session, I told you that the fluid which is circulating in here, the fluid which is circulating in the empty spaces, what is the fluid? What is that fluid? Cerebrospinal fluid. Who is going to form this cerebrospinal fluid? I will present in the coming sessions. So many issues are there in the brain. Even though we discussed the brain, I think from 1 hour, I think we are discussing the brain. But even then, not even 1% of the brain was also completed. So all these are just superficially. We discussed the introductory aspects of the brain. I have to explain so many things about the pons. I have to explain so many things about cerebellum. But I will definitely come with animations in the coming sessions. Thank you, students. All the best.